Hey guys, welcome to Wrench to Drive. Today we're going to have a quick look at this AM32 brushless crawler ESC. This is, as best as I can tell, a clone of the Rhino AM32 ESC. The Rhino has been out for a while now, typically sells the 80 amp version for about $100 shipped to your door via AliExpress. This combo, this motor, ESC, programming link, $88 shipped to my door. Very, very good deal. I would very much expect that you're not going to see this ESC much below $60 because the power transistors, the processor, the various chips on this, you really can't even begin to build an ESC yourself for much less than that. So obviously the manufacturers have to make some money. I don't think they're going to be able to drop the price a whole heck of a lot more, and I quite frankly would be cautious if I saw a clone for much less than that $60 mark. It's just one of those things. If you do some pricing, you're going to see what I'm talking about. Parts are not super cheap when you're trying to build an ESC that'll take 80 amps. So, what do you need to know about this bad boy? AM32. That is an open source project that people have been using for a while now with RC drones. The big feature that AM32 provides for brushless motors is sinusoidal startup wave function. So essentially what that means is the wave of power that's put to the motor at startup is a sinusoidal wave which gives more torque to the motor, or lets the motor provide more torque. So for a crawler, that's exactly what you want. That bottom end startup power, right? That's what it gives you. The other thing that this particular ESC gives you is a 10 amp battery elimination circuit, the BEC. That's a really good thing. It's adjustable via this dip switch on the on-off switch. The on-off switch is waterproof, super nice. That means that you got 10 amps of power max to run your servos and whatnot on your crawler. Servos, lights, whatever you're running, right? That's quite a bit of extra power. Now, for example, I've run my crawlers with a Hobbywing 10BL120 or a 10BL60. They work pretty darn well. Those ESCs are not terrible, but the battery elimination circuit does not provide nearly as much power, and you get noise, electronic noise from the motor. Not going to hurt anything, but it's annoying. Some people really, really don't like it. This provides silent running and that nice big battery elimination circuit. Now, despite the hype of the sinusoidal startup, I have to say it does not seem to be night and day torquey on the bottom end. I've tested it in a couple of different scenarios. It seems like the threshold for cogging is very similar using one of these or using a Hobbywing 10BL120 or 10BL60. Those are the Hobbywings that are capable of running censored, but we are running them in a non-censored application, so that's not really relevant. Better, worse, hard to tell. At least that's my opinion. Take it for what you will. I'll show you some footage. Now, does that really matter? Not so much, because at the end of the day, this is a pretty good crawler ESC, and to me, that $60 price point is very, very, very reasonable. One thing you got to be careful of, you need the programmer. Why? Why do you need the programmer? Typically, you just hook up a motor, away you go. Well, as you can see from the software screen, you get to adjust the kVs of the motor and the poles of the motor. The poles is even more important. So if you're changing the motor and you're going to a different one, not the same number of kVs, you got to change that setting. You got to set the kVs properly, or it's not going to function the way you want it to. Even more important, if you're going to a 3650 type thing, you got to go from 14 poles to 4 poles. Otherwise, it's really not going to work properly, right? That's why you need the programmer. So, in my opinion, if you're buying one of these for the first time, you do not have the programming link. Unless you are very, very savvy and you really don't even need to be watching this video, you need that programming link. So find a combo, buy that. Because typically, Canadian dollars, ESC is about 60, Programming Link's about 20. That's kind of pricey. The entire combo, motor, link, ESC, 88. In US dollars, that's about a third less, so call it 70, 65, 70. It's quite a big difference, right? And if you buy just the ESC and the linker, it's almost the same amount of money. They're essentially thrown in the motor. You know, in my opinion, solid motor seems really good. Who doesn't need an extra motor kicking around, right? Gives you more options. They have a 2250 kV version, and I think it's a 1700 kV version, something like that. So whichever one's more suitable to your needs. I went with the 2250 because where I run, typically wheel speed is fairly important. Now the nice thing is these motors are very powerful, so you can definitely put in a bigger gear typically and get more speed, and you're still going to have pretty good crawling. The people that will be most concerned are the ones who want insanely slow speed crawling, like really, really very, very, very slow, barely moving. Those guys are going to have decisions to make because at some point you need wheel speed. And if you're getting insanely good slow speed crawling, you're sacrificing wheel speed typically. So take that into account. I would say either of these setups for the average person, you know, the motor and ESC combo becomes, you know, not your biggest problem. I mean, my 2 cents worth is always, I mean, at some point you need to be better at driving, but take that for what you will. Now, last but not least, this is very solid. To me, the price point at this juncture has become very, very good. Pretty much what you want it to be. If you don't like screwing around with settings, you don't need that flexibility, it's well worth considering the Hobbywing Fusion. The Hobbywing Fusion products, they got the FOC control, field-oriented control, provides really, really good low-speed crawling, pretty much unmatched. This does not do the same level. This is good. The FOC units are better. I would highly recommend those, and they also have the added benefit of pretty much painless use. You don't have to have any technical savvy whatsoever. The downside, it's an all-in-one unit, ESC and motor built into one, so if something goes wrong, got to buy a new one. They're very much the same price as this combo, this little package of bits I got here. The exception is the Fusion Pro. It's much more expensive, typically over $150 Canadian, so over $100 US. Definitely, in my opinion, a little on the pricey side, but they work really, really well. It's an awesome unit, especially if you got more money than time. The Hobbywing Fusion is well worth considering. If you like farting around, if you're kind of a nerd, this is a great way to go. If you don't want an all-in-one unit, this is a great way to go. So far, I'm very impressed. I have no real complaints, so keep that in mind. Hobbywing Fusion, definitely a good option. If you like playing around with settings and whatnot, this is a sweet ESC. I definitely recommend it. And as I mentioned, my 2 cents worth, I don't think these are going to get way cheaper, so this is probably a pretty good time to buy. I would be shocked, absolutely shocked, if at some point down the road this was available for, you know, $30 to $40 Canadian. That would blow my mind because it's just really, really hard for them to make any money at all at that price range, right? And, you know, that'd be like $25 US. I can't see that happening. If anybody knows better, comment away, but it would shock me. The parts are simply not cheap enough for that to be doable. So this is a pretty good time to buy. And again, the prices vary quite a bit. I'm talking typically an AliExpress store that includes shipping, right? So no extra money involved. There are other stores where the base price, for example, for like the Rhino ESC, for example, is pretty good. But typically they all charge you for shipping. So suddenly the price is on par with everybody else's price. So you do have to shop around. I've ordered lots of stuff off AliExpress lately, and AliExpress has become pretty darn reliable. If you see a store with an approval rating in the 95% or better range, you know, right in that vicinity, pretty reliable. There are some less reliable stores that typically you can get a better price. You're rolling the dice a little bit. I've ordered from some of them, and typically the biggest thing you notice is that the shipping takes longer. The big name stores, stuff gets to you really fast these days, especially with that choice shipping that they now offer. If you can find a product you want that comes with that choice shipping, it's going to get to you quite quickly, in my experience. So take that with a grain of salt. I'm in Canada. Other parts of the world, I have no idea, but I would expect it's similar. Alright guys, that's it for this edition of Wrench to Drive, where we ask the eternal question: do you drive to wrench, or do you wrench to drive? See you next time.